The year 1994 shall forever remain indelible in the minds of all South Africans. Not only did it mark the dawn of a new dispensation, but more significantly, it gave birth to our constitutional democracy. South Africa's constitution is heralded the world over for its universal application and liberal inclusion of all human rights. Moreover, a post-apartheid South Africa ushered in the establishment of Chapter 9 institutions. Chapter 9 institutions such as the South African Human Rights Commission serve as vanguards and custodians of our benchmark constitution. Who is the SAHRC? As an independent institution, the South African Human Rights Commission is constitutionally mandated to ensure the attainment and enjoyment of human rights for all South Africans. The Commission and other Chapter 9 institutions were established to uphold and guard our constitutional values. Thus, as a custodian of the Constitution, the Commission is mandated with ensuring the fulfillment of and access to our universal human rights. What does the SAHRC do? The Commission is mandated by the Constitution to ensure the attainment and enjoyment of human rights for all South Africans, irrespective of race, gender, sex, creed, culture, or class. In fulfilling its broad mandate, the Commission works with a vast multitude of communities in and around South Africa. The Commission prides itself in having long-standing and mutually beneficial networks in an endeavor to educate people about their rights. As an independently established body, the Commission also works with government to ensure the delivery of services to its citizens. The Commission's work is not only limited to serving communities, but extends to Parliament, where the Commission works together with policymakers to make and pass laws that improve the lives of our people. The Commission also ensures the right to access to justice, particularly through the courts. How does the SAHRC carry out its mandate? The Commission promotes, protects, and monitors human rights without fear, favor, or prejudice. The Commission is concerned mainly with promoting a culture of human rights. Through its advocacy, research, and legal units, the Commission ensures the overall promotion, monitoring the observance and protection of human rights respectively. Where can you find us? The Commission's head office is based in Johannesburg, Gauteng, and also has offices throughout our 9 provinces.
Good morning, everybody. Is there anyone out there? Somebody, thank you. I have one person. Okay, good morning. My name is Alan. I am from the South African Human Rights Commission, and I'd like to welcome you to the launch of our social media charter here today. The theme for our day today is a call to action, defending human rights in the era of social media. We are looking forward to spending this day with you. I see so many young faces, so many bright and energetic faces. Yes, so we're not going to delay too much. I'm going to try a little thing today so that I can just make sure we're all doing okay. So we are celebrating today. We're celebrating not only our social media charter, which the Human Rights Commission will be launching, but we are celebrating a second thing, which is positive change on social media. So can you please repeat that after me so I can hear that you're here, I can hear that you're awake and you're paying attention. We are celebrating what? Positive change on social media. Can we try that again? Are you guys still asleep? We are celebrating what? Fantastic. Okay, so we have some awesome guests in the building today. We have Google here with us, we have TikTok here with us, and we have so many great guests who will be speaking to you today about what we're doing and the social media charter. To kick it right off, I'm going to hand over to the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Nelson Mandela University, Prof. Andre Keert, to give us a welcome. Please give him a hand.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks to our facilitator this morning, Alan, a researcher and advisor to the South African Human Rights Commission, Deputy Chairperson, now Acting Chair, Fatima Chan of the Human Rights Commission, Commissioner Gao, Prof. Pamela Maseko, our Executive Dean of Humanities, our University Deputy Dean Jackie Luke, Acting Chief Operations Officer of the Human Rights Commission, Eric Moknyana. Welcome here as well, our panelists from the Human Rights Commission, Dr. Eileen Carter, from our own community, Jude Mathurin, TikTok, Fortune, Kwele Sibanda, and from Google, Abongile Mashere. Warm welcome to you as well. Vice Chancellor, senior executive colleagues and friends from sister institutions in the higher education sector and other public entities here represented today. Chapter 9 institutions supporting democracy, one of our key public sectors in our country. Our university and school staff, students and alumnus, government entities, public entities, officials, international organizations and other stakeholders, members of various media houses and social media platforms, distinguished guests. A very warm and appreciative welcome on behalf of our Vice Chancellor, Prof. Sibongile Butwa, to you on the occasion of the launch of the Human Rights Commission Social Media Charter, a call to action defending human rights in the era of social media at this time, during this month, Human Rights Month, and leading up to Human Rights Day on the 21st of March 2023, which is also International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. The Charter addresses instances of online expression that, while not necessarily meeting the legal threshold of hate speech, nonetheless detract from social cohesion and violate the right to dignity, two important and interlinked principles of the Bill of Rights, which we as a university actively pursue and inculcate as part of our core business. Given what we have been seeing and reading on our various social media platforms, its deployment in various spaces over the past few years, I think that I echo the sentiments of most gathered here when I say this could not have happened at a more opposite time. Given the moment of technology that we're in, the moment of the digital that's approaching us from the future, this would probably go down as one of the most important interventions in recent time in our country. You will understand that we are very excited, Chair, to be co-hosting the launch of the Charter together with the Commission, a Chapter 9 institution whose mandate, as expressed in Section 184(1) of the Constitution, is to promote respect for human rights and a culture of human rights, promote the protection, development, and attainment of human rights, and monitor and assess the observance of human rights in the Republic. While the digital space can be liberatory for learning and living, it can also be a precariously dehumanizing site. This is especially true if disinformation, bias, and harm are allowed to spread in unencumbered ways. We are thus of the view that the Charter will serve as a useful resource for parents, children, students, academics, teachers, and so on. And we believe too that universities, employers, and corporates will find the Charter a useful tool in developing their own social media policies. Our university is embedded within a humanizing ethos, which we infuse into our learning and teaching, research, and engagement endeavors. Our aim and intention for our students and graduates is that they will develop the attributes of compassion and a critical and ethical consciousness to change the world. Thus, we seek to contribute to a critical and responsible citizenry. Obviously, our digital environment is foregrounded in our endeavors. We want our students and our staff to harness its full potential. However, they also need to be mindful of the threats to themselves and to humanity in general whilst deploying those platforms. Our media studies and communication courses within our Faculty of Humanities teach analysis and understandings of how we create, but also respond to messages in critically astute ways. We have various initiatives and research chairs whose work is aimed at social cohesion, a key objective of the Charter, and one may add the subtext of the entire Chapter 2 of our Constitution. Yet we are challenged in profound ways. Among so many examples, the importance of the Charter has been highlighted by a recent social media attack on our own Vice-Chancellor that reeks of misogyny and sexism and revealed the deep-seated challenges women face in our society, exacerbated by the ease with which such untrue and unjustified views can be expressed on social media. We have so much work to do on this front. Our institutional strategy resonates very clearly and strongly with the Human Rights Commission's mandate to promote and protect human rights. Our Faculty of Humanities, which has the strategic goal of revitalizing its knowledge fields and domains through transformative and restorative practices, and our university as a whole aims to strengthen our relationship with the Commission going forward, building on our MOU, which was signed towards the end of last year and which has brought us together today. Many thanks to the Commission for reaching out and inviting us to co-travel the human rights journey with them. They're one of our key Chapter 9 institutions. Since the unrest in KwaZulu-Natal and parts of Gauteng in 2021, the Commission has been consulting widely on how we might deal with the various challenges facing the nation, a lack of social solidarity, all of which contribute to the state of disharmony in the country. These consultations led to the development of the Social Harmony Through National Effort SHINE, which is a product of us all, co-produced with all stakeholders in the country. This year, 2023, has appropriately been dubbed the Year of Shine and intends to encourage the people of South Africa to dialogue on a range of topics of national importance in pursuit of developing a culture of dialoguing through our differences, which we hope becomes the norm so that it can push back the culture of violence and fragmentation in our homes and society. It will require an individual and collective effort from all of us. So allow me, Acting Chair and Commissioners and members of the Human Rights Commission and other guests, to kick off that process with a warm and a hearty greeting and a welcoming embrace from our university. We are pleased to play our part in this important initiative. I thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Keat. Yes, so I want to give us a short background of what the Human Rights Commission does. I suppose not everyone knows the Human Rights Commission, right? Yes, so the Human Rights Commission is a national institution with provincial offices in all 9 provinces, and our role is threefold: to promote human rights, to protect human rights, and to monitor human rights. We promote by educating and developing materials such as the Social Media Charter. We protect by going to court and litigating and considering complaints. And then we monitor by going to all the different provinces and areas in the country to ensure that the laws of the country are observed when it comes to our Bill of Rights, which is in Chapter 2 of our Constitution. Now, is there anyone here who has not seen the Constitution or read the Constitution yet? It's fine, no one will haze you. Let me see hands. Who has not seen the Constitution? No, fantastic. I'm so happy. Right. Okay, so let me give you where you can contact the Commission if you'd like to follow us and access some of the material that we do have, including the social media that we are launching, the social media charter we're launching today. On Twitter, we are capitals SAHRCOMMISSION. Omission. So OMMISSION. On Facebook, we are SA Human Rights Commission. On YouTube, we are SHRC1. And our website is www.sahrc.org.za. And you can engage the Commission through all of those channels. All right, so our next session, or our next speaker, is the Deputy Chairperson of the Human Rights Commission. How it usually works is there are 8 commissioners at the Human Rights Commission that are employed by Parliament to basically ensure that human rights are promoted, protected, and monitored in the country, in this institution. So today we have our Deputy Chair, Ms. Fatima Chauhan, who will be speaking to us about a wonderful initiative we have at the Human Rights Commission called Shine, and linking it to social media. Can we please give her a warm welcome?
Well, good morning, everybody. Molweni, Sambonani, Goeiemorgen. Let me hear your Afrikaans. Well done, well done. The Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Mr. Andre Keert, Commissioner Andre Gam, professors, students, ladies and gentlemen. It's wonderful to be here in what I consider the most beautiful province in our country, isn't that so? So I see many, many young people here today, and I'm sure you're not looking forward to hearing about boring old people. And I was just thinking when I was at university, you know, it was so long ago, and you won't probably believe me when I tell you, but there was no internet when I was at university. We didn't dream of a day where everybody would have that little gadget where most of you probably hold on to it very tightly wherever you are during the day, called a cell phone, right? We didn't have those dreams. If you had asked me when I was at university if I used TikTok, you know what I would have thought? You were asking me the time. And I would have looked at my wristwatch and told you it was 10:30 a.m., right? So that's how old I am. And we didn't have much in those days as young students. But we had dreams. And I'm sure you have those too, in bundles. And I remember thinking one of my dreams was, you know, I used to struggle every day as a student just to get enough lunch money, you know. I used to love eating potato chips, but they were quite expensive on my university. And I used to often think, I wish I had some rich uncle who passed away and left me a whole lot of things, right? Don't we all have that dream? If we only had like a rich ancestor that we didn't even know who passed on, and we get a call one day and we say, hello, you know, you're related to so-and-so and he left you something amazing. So I'm here today to say that you all have a rich ancestor. You actually do. And they are our founding fathers of our democratic, human rights-based state. And they left to each of us 3 things. 3 things, not 3 things. 3 things. The one is a beautiful painting. The second, a treasure map, a road map. And the third, wait for it, every student's dream is what? a car, right? So you've got three things that has been bequeathed to you. A beautiful painting, a road map, and a car. And what did we do with this? We packed it away and we put it in the storeroom. It's a very unusual thing to do, right? Most people who have a rich uncle and they get something in their will keep it with them, like we do our cell phones. And they would treasure them. But what did we do? We put it in some dusty storeroom. And Shine is really a program that reminds us that we have these treasures in our dusty storerooms and that we must go and get it. And what are these things that have been passed down to us by our beloved forefathers? What is this beautiful painting, this roadmap, and this vehicle? So let's start with the beautiful painting. It is, in fact, the most beautiful painting you have ever seen. It is the most precious thing amongst all three. When you look at it, you will see the most wonderful place in the world that one could live in. Beautiful streets lined with massive trees, fruit trees, gum trees, yellowwood trees, birds singing in them. Amazing glittering buildings where people live, work, and play. A place where people of all colors and creeds walk hand in hand together, mingle freely, walk with dignity, work and play in harmony. There is peace, there is security, there is freedom from want and need. And everyone aspires to be the best that they can. They aspire to be their dreams. This is a place where especially women are honored because they are, in fact, the source of society and the very first teachers that we have. It is a painting of a great nation and peoples, and when you look at it, your eyes fill with tears at the sheer beauty of this place. And you want to live there. You want to be part of this nation, of this wonderful place. And when you take this big canvas and you turn it around and you look behind it, you see scribbled at the back simple words. 2 words. Our country. You feel baffled at this because our country is not what is depicted in the picture, right? But then you realize that what you have inherited is a vision for a country that can be, that will be, and a roadmap towards getting there, and a vehicle that will get you there. And what then is this roadmap? The roadmap is our Constitution with its Bill of Rights. It's not a magic wand. And many believe that simply because it's there, they have their rights, and we have this magical place. That is not true. It is a roadmap, a guide, but only you can stay true to it. It is as I am working for the freedom of others that others can acquire their freedom, that I, in turn, become a beneficiary of freedom. It isn't because I have placed the Constitution or the Bill of Rights on the wall, but because I live it every day, in everything that I do, in everything that I say. That is how you use a roadmap, because unless you stay true to it, wherever you are and wherever you walk, you are going to stray away from it. And you're not going to get to the beautiful place in the painting. And then the car. I know you want to know about the car especially, right? Because young people like their cars. Is it a fancy car, a red one with fancy wheels? Is it a speedster? Is it a Porsche maybe? It is in fact a special kind of vehicle. It only takes you to one place. It takes you to that beautiful painting, that country that can be ours. The vehicles are our constitutional bodies, the Chapter 9 institutions, such as the IEC, which ensures that we have free and fair elections, so that, unlike other places in the world, elections are not the subject of wars and civil strife. That we can rest assured that our elections are free and fair and everybody has had their say. It is institutions such as the public protector, so that when you are treated unfairly by any public authority, you can complain and find administrative justice. It is bodies such as the Human Rights Commission, who, when you feel you are a victim of your rights being violated or discrimination, you can report those matters to these bodies, and you will have a lawyer on your side who will help you resolve the problem, but also, importantly, try and level the playing fields so that such violations don't recur in our society, because our society needs protection. It needs harmony. And when we fight with each other, we must know the rules of the game. In a constitutional democracy, everyone can actually come out of that fight with some dignity. So when you are a victim of real or perceived rights violations, say, for example, your university fails to give you your degree, and you think that they are discriminating against you because of your shoes. You wear very fancy shoes, and they may be not liking your shoes. Then instead of going to toy outside Vice Chancellor's office, throwing stones at his window, bringing your friends to maybe cut his tires of his car, instead of doing that, consult your roadmap. Consult your roadmap. Because we don't only promote human rights when things are okay. We promote human rights when things are not okay. When you consult your roadmap, you will remember that everyone is innocent until proven guilty, right? You will remember that you need to resolve things in a way that causes no further damage to anybody else. And it may turn out that if you do go to Dr. Carter over there and say, you are my lawyer, the deputy chair of the Human Rights Commission said, you are my lawyer, come and help me because, look at my shoes. They're discriminating against me because my shoes. And I want my degree. And Dr. Carter and her team, who are here today, go and investigate. The first thing they would do is they would call the authorities and say, we want to come and see you about a matter. This young student has passed all of their exams, but you are failing them because you don't want to confer the degree. And it may surprise you that it's not because of your shoes that you are not getting, or that you're not graduating. It's because actually somebody just forgot to enter one of your marks onto the system. It was a human error. And the next thing, there you are, in your graduation gown, beaming at your vice chancellor and having a whack on your head with a square cap, and you look down, and both you and your vice chancellor are wearing the same shoes. Why? Because your vice chancellor saw you one day on campus with your shoes and decided, those are amazing shoes, I'm getting myself a pair. And you and your vice chancellor both look awful in your shoes on your graduation day. So an ugly situation, potentially ugly situation, becomes a truly great occasion. This is your roadmap. This is the value of your treasured roadmap. When you look behind you in your life, as one song goes, do you see closed doors or do you see open doors? Those of us who have lived many years will tell you how valuable the open doors are in your life, so that when you look back, you have many helping hands, many resources. And as you grow older, those resources increase. You don't want to have closed and shut doors behind you. This is truly a wonderful inheritance that you and nobody else have. So today we want to talk to you about upholding human rights specifically on social media. And we want you to look at what we have produced, something called the Social Media Charter, which is a guide to parents, to children, to lecturers, to big corporations when they do their policies on social media. And we know you are all on social media, am I right? That's a very kind of timid yes. Are you all on social media or not? Yes, okay. So you know that you can have some wonderful things, you can learn some wonderful things on social media, right? It can be a wonderful place, but it can also be a bit of a difficult thing sometimes. You also find bad things. You find bullying. You find people talking about other people in a negative way, right? And sometimes you have things that go viral because they are so bad, right? And if you want to live in the real world that is full of harmony, surely you want to also live in a virtual world that is full of harmony. We want to talk to you about your role in upholding human rights wherever you are, staying true to your roadmap wherever you are, whether it's posting something or just sharing something that somebody else sent to you. Ask yourself this one thing: is somebody going to be hurt by my actions? Is somebody going to be hurt by my actions? Yesterday, Dr. Carter and her team settled a matter in which she took a very high-profiled person to court. This person made very disparaging remarks about our LGBTQ community. I can tell you, as we sit here today, that high-profiled person is going to be 100,000 rand poorer. He's going to pay 100,000 rand as part of the settlement agreement. Because in our constitution, we have the freedom to express ourselves. But unlike other countries, we have limits to what we can say. And those limits pertain to being hurtful to other people, to undermining what we treasure most, which is diversity. You know, it doesn't matter if we all in this room were the same skin color, we would still be different because we are human beings. Human beings are by our very nature different. And that's the wonderful thing about us, right? Because imagine if we're all the same. We all said hello in the same way, we walked the same way, we spoke the same way. It would be the most boring place on earth. And that's why social media is so exciting, because we have differences. It's wonderful to see other people's differences, how they think, how they express themselves. Wonderful. And our constitution is all about that. It's about treasuring the difference, celebrating it, and drawing strength from it, because we learn from others, don't we? We are also here talking to you today about the Social Harmony National Effort, or SHINE. And we want all of you to shine. You are all going to be our ambassadors for SHINE, in whatever you do. And so what does SHINE ask you to do? Well, if you go on our website, there is a pledge that every South African, hopefully, will be pledging. And that is essentially to be kind, to do positive things, to say positive things, and to be positive, and to be the best that you can be at all times. Isn't that the place that you want to live in, where everybody is just positive, everybody is accepting, everybody is just trying their best to be their best? So we want you to shine. We want you to greet each other with love. We want you to acknowledge each other with love. We want you to be kind. And we want you to engage your friends and your families about this kindness, and to call out hatred, to call out bigotry, and to make sure that whatever you do in society, as you graduate, as you operate in this university, as the young minds, the energetic flow from our country, that those are positive things. That we can sit back as the older people and say, you know, look at our kids. They are the best in the world. They are the most positive, and they are the most skilled. Social media can be a very powerful tool, and SHINE allows us to be a powerful people. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. So we all understand what SHINE's about now, right? Yes? Okay, thank you. Can we remind, I see there are a couple of people that have joined us now that are sitting on the stairs. So can we just do two things with regards to that? Firstly, can we remind them why we're here? We are celebrating what? We are celebrating positive change on social media. Can we say that? We're celebrating what? Positive change on social media. Fantastic. Now, the second thing is, For those that have seats in between them, please can you just shift in like this so we can allow those that are sitting on the stairs to also have a seat. Can we just do that for 2 seconds? Okay. Thank you for that. All right, so can we move on quickly? We have one more opening remark from the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Prof. Pamela Maseko. Can we please give her a hand while she gives us her remarks?
Molweni, Diapotisa, Diabulisa, Diatakhuzisa. Our Deputy Vice Chancellor from Nelson Mandela University, Professor Andre Kiet, representatives of our sister universities, here, Advocate Sue Smile, who's representing the Vice Chancellor from Rhodes University. Of course, representative from Walter Sisulu Universities. And our strategic partner today, the South African Human Rights Commission. I greet all the commissioners and other representatives here. The Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality, the IEC, Google Africa, TikTok, all these people are here. Let me just get a sense from young people, who is using TikTok? Let's check behind you. So we've got someone here who is representing TikTok. Also from IEC, as I said, the public protector, the panelists who are going to be talking to us about social media later, and the community members here, Diabulisa Betunana, Abafundi, and my faculty. Otherwise, I won't have a place to go back to if I don't acknowledge it. And I know that we've got learners from local high schools. It's good to have you in our midst, Ndianbulisa. I'm honored to be standing before you today, representing the humanities faculties as the strategic partner from the university, as we launch the social media charter in collaboration with the South African Human Rights Commission. The charter marks a significant step towards creating a more ethical and responsible online community that upholds the fundamental principles of human rights and dignity. Media use has played a critical role in social and political movements that have shaped South Africa's history. In the 1800s, in the 1880s, newspapers such as Sikidimi, Bantu Bato, Imvoza Bansundu were used to mobilize black masses against British administration at the time. And these were newspapers, but it was media. In the 1970s, underground newspapers such as The World, The New Nation, provided a platform for activists to challenge the apartheid regime's propaganda and disseminate information about their struggles. The internet and social media in recent years has opened up new avenues for young people to mobilize and organize. We know that during the Fees Must Fall movement in 2014, 2015, 2016, social media platforms such as Twitter and Facebook were used to coordinate protests and share information with a broader audience across the globe, which helped to galvanize support and pressure the government to address the issue of access to education. I'm highlighting the latter ones, the 1970s, and the more recent ones because they were led by young people. They were led by learners in schools, the 1970s movement, the 80s movement, and of course the more recent one was led by people as young as you in the room. So, amandla kubafundi bantu. So over the 2 centuries from the 1800s, in this part of the world, the power of media has allowed us to amplify our voices and reach global audience, ultimately contributing to social change. So, xa sisebenzisa o-TikTok, no-Facebook, nezinye izinto asisebenzisi nje for ukuba sisebenzisa kuba kumnandi, sisebenzisa kuba sifuna ukwenza inguqu apho sikhoyo, and that is possible as we have seen. Social media has become a central part of our lives, and it's easy to forget that it's easy to forget that what we say and do on these platforms can have real-world consequences. The Charter serves as a reminder that we have a responsibility to use social media in a way that respects the dignity of others and upholds their human rights. I also acknowledge that social media is not a neutral space. It can be used to perpetuate hate speech, as both the Deputy of South African Human Rights Commission and my Deputy Vice Chancellor has indicated. It can be used to perpetuate hate speech, discrimination, and violence. As a faculty, in associating ourselves with the Charter, we stand against these harmful behaviors and commit ourselves to build a social media community that upholds human rights and dignity. The theme of this launch of the South African Human Rights Commission Social Media Charter, a call to action defending human rights in the era of social media, is charged with both agency, ingxamile, and agency, bakufuneka abantu ukuba bayihambise lo myalezo. One might even sense a call to wage war against all forms of social ills that seek to plunge the country back into the recent horrific past that they have experienced or that we have experienced and whose wounds remain exposed and yet to be healed. As such, this launch is another layer fortifying the non-racial, the non-sexist, and constitutional democracy in South Africa in both virtual and physical spaces that have equally become our realities. As the Executive Dean of Humanities, this charter aligns perfectly with our strategic project of revitalizing the humanities, again, as the Deputy Vice Chancellor has indicated. We need to go back to humanity, ubuntu betu. Kufuneka siye ebuyambo, sibuyela apho sivela khona, ubuntu betu, to the very core of what it means to be human. Kuthetha ukuthini ba ungumntu. Xa ethi umntu ayibobuntu obubenzayo okanye asingumntu lowo. What does it mean, especially when it relates to the way we use social media? This means acknowledging the value of each person and respecting their rights, whether in the real or online world. As a space of learning and teaching in the university, and specifically as a faculty, it is common sense that these values are reflected in what we teach in all the courses that relate to media and communication. And these are taught for those, all of you are coming to study in the next few years in the Faculty of Humanities in this university, and you're going to be studying language, media, and communication, where issues about media and communication are taught. It is essential, therefore, to remember that the humanities are also about engaging with the world around us, about understanding and interpreting the social, cultural, and political context we find ourselves. In this sense, the Charter represents an important step towards using the insights of the humanities to create a more and just and equitable society. As I come to close, Gqeberha okanye ukuqukumbela mandilithathe eluthuba ndithi makhe sireflecte, just to reflect on our use of social media. Sizinikele, commit ourselves to use it in a way that promotes the principles of human rights and dignity. Sisebenzise i-social media ngendlela ephuhlisa isidima somntu namalungelo obuntu. Sisonke sinako ukwakha isizwe nelizwe elinobulungisa elilinganayo both on world and offline world. Enkosi kakhulu, ndiyabulela.
Thank you, Executive Dean Maseko. Okay, so we're now moving to the main course of the day today. And you might be wondering why I've been using social media for some time. Why do I need guidance on how to use social media? Is there anyone here that feels like that? No. No, I'm glad. So there are two reasons why we as a commission have realized that there's a need for a social media charter in the country. One of them is the amount of complaints we receive of hate speech on social media. But also, statistics show us that we are the 4th highest in the world of time spent on social media. So in South Africa, the average person spends 3.5 hours a day on social media. Right? I know you have those friends who say, no, I only spend 20 minutes and then I lock my phone. But that's what the average is saying. We use a lot of social media. But also linked to that, we also rank the 4th highest in the world for cyberbullying, meaning people who are bullied on social media, whether it's posting pictures that hurt them or saying things that hurt them. So that says to us that we need to learn how to relate better on social media. Is that correct? Yes, okay. So I'm going to hand over to the next speaker, the Acting Chief Operations Officer of the Human Rights Commission. His name is Eric Mokonyama. Please can we give him a welcome hand?
Molweni. Good morning. Goeiemorgen. The one thing I usually do when I speak in fora such as this, the first thing I do is to lower the mic because I often don't find myself to be equal to others. Thank you so much, Program Director and colleague, Mr. Alan Tumbo. Please allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to acknowledge our Deputy Chairperson, Mrs. Fatima Johan, Commissioner Andre Gam, the professors from the institution, Executive Deputy Faculty of Humanities, Professor Maseko, the South African Human Rights Commission team, Dr. Eileen Carter, and everyone else. Guys, you have done a good job. I will be making a huge mistake by not acknowledging Professor Andre Kiet, who many years ago happened to be one of us at the Human Rights Commission. Let me also acknowledge Mr. William Bird and everyone sitting here, all dignitaries, community members, students. As I was walking in here, I said to colleagues, that feeling of being at varsity has just revisited me. And I'm deeply honored to be standing before you all during this prestigious moment in our democratic and social media era. Today marks a significant milestone in the protection of human rights as we launch this social media charter, a charter which I call our charter. Is it possible to flight it? All speakers have talked about the charter, and I'm imagining everyone is wondering, but where is the charter? You know, what is this we're talking about? So, whilst means are being made to have it flighted, allow me to proceed addressing you and indicate that it is fitting that this launch is taking place during Human Rights Month in this institution, which is led inter alia by one who used to be in the leadership of the Human Rights Commission, and indicate that we would all agree that social media has become an increasingly important platform for the exercise and defense of our fundamental human rights. Many speakers have already mentioned the importance of respecting other people's rights and so on. And I want to emphasize something very important here. I think it should even begin with respecting your own rights. Because the moment you acknowledge and appreciate that you have rights as a human being, you will see the importance of respecting the next person's rights, because that is exactly what you're expecting of them. And also, most importantly, which I find to be missing every time we speak about rights, is responsibilities. Rights go with responsibilities. Your right extends to where my right begins. And it is only with the level of respect for each other and each other's rights that we will be able to live in harmony. The Social Media Charter was developed by the Commission as a culmination of consultations that took place after we had had landmark hearings on racism on such social media platforms in 2017. So we didn't just wake up one day and come up with a social media charter. And remember, I mentioned this, that this is our social media charter. I don't mean the Commission's social media charter. I mean the country social media charter. It is ours as much as it is yours, because the Commission is everyone's commission. So this charter, which serves as a guideline for how we should use media, social media responsibly, it's everyone's charter. It's everyone's guideline. The Charter provides a set of guidelines for individuals and organizations to promote responsible, ethical, respectful behavior on social media. It is quite voluminous. It's about 30 pages. If I were to go through it now, it would take me the whole afternoon, so I'm not going to do that. My colleague mentioned the importance or asked you about the Constitution. I am hoping you have not only seen the Constitution, you have also read it. Because as students, I imagine that your first sickness is of reading. You must be sick of reading. You must read like religiously. Yeah. You know, you must make reading your daily life because that's what you are here for. We know, and few or previous speakers have mentioned that social media can have positives and negatives, right? It can have those even on human rights. As I indicated, it can be a vehicle for us to enjoy our rights, but it could also be used as a vehicle through which our rights get violated. It can facilitate free speech, provide a platform for social activism, and connect people across borders. On the other hand, it can be a breeding ground for hate speech, harassment, and discrimination. The Commission's trends analysis, we analyze the kind of complaints we receive over periods of time across 9 provincial offices. The trends analysis has indicated that allegations and issues around violations of the right to equality are still the most prevalent of complaints lodged in the Commission. So it is very critical that we address these issues and find ways to to protect our rights online. The Charter is a critical step towards achieving that goal. It outlines a set of principles that promote the protection of human rights on social media platforms. It includes sections on accountability, freedom of expression, privacy, and protection of vulnerable groups, including children. We know in most instances, children are most vulnerable to violations through the social media platform. The section on children is particularly important as it recognizes the unique challenges faced by young people online. Social media can expose children to harmful content and put them at risk of exploitation. The Charter provides guidelines on how to safeguard the rights and well-being of children on social media platforms. This launch is an opportunity to reflect on our responsibilities as social media users. I observed over the recent past how powerful social media is. I'm a father, I have children. I miss my children, but we live together in the same house because of social media. They're always engaged. You must see as we travel in a car, the moment we get into the car and I'm driving, they get busy. So it is very critical that this tool, which they have readily in their hands, is used very responsibly. In the building we are occupying, there's a construction happening. I would see construction workers, as soon as they take a lunch break, they focus more on their cell phones than their food. That's how critical this tool is. And if it's used irresponsibly, it can result in what Deputy Chair mentioned earlier, inter alia being 100,000 rand poorer. And we know some people have gone as far as being imprisoned for how they behave using social media. In conclusion, the Human Rights Commission believes that this charter will contribute to the promotion of respect for human rights, the rule of law, and the advancement of democracy in our country. We thank all those who participated in the consultations and the drafting of the charter, and we look forward to working with all stakeholders to promote its adoption and implementation as we make a call on everyone to act in defending human rights in this era of social media. I thank you.
Thank you, Acting COO. So what we've done is, in order to access the social media charter, you are able to find it on our website, but we've also condensed it into small 4 infographic pictures that you can share easily on social media, and you can find that on our Twitter page, which will be posted in the next few minutes. Right, so I wanted to say I'm a millennial, and for as long as I've been adult, there's this competition that's been going on between millennials and Gen Zs. I don't know how many other Gens are in here, right? Is there any other ones I've left out? It's mostly Gen Zs, right? Baby boomers? Oh, yes, of course, we have baby boomers and the silent generation. Let's not forget. So who do we think uses social media the most? Really? Gen Z, I hear. No baby boomers? No millennials? Okay, so I'm going to give you the answer so that we get this settled for once and for all. So, the age group that uses social media the most is 25 to 34. So, millennials. Yes. And then we have 18 to 24s, so our Gen Zs, and followed by our 35s to 44s. Our lowest users are our 55 to 64, right? And by the way, those who are 65 and above use social media more than the 55 to 64s. So I don't know what's happening with our 55 to 64s, right? All right, so we are now going to move over to our panel session, which we're all really looking forward to. I'm going to call them up one by one. Their profiles are going to be put up on our sets, and I will try and introduce all of them. And while I do that, can I also just acknowledge those students and colleagues that are in our overflow room? I understand our overflow room is full, just like the auditorium. Hi to all of you. I know you can't respond, but we know you're here with us. And thank you for coming. So, I'm going to now introduce our panelists in no particular order. Firstly, we have Jude Mathurin, who lectures, I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Jude lectures journalism and new media at Nelson Mandela University, where he works to educate the next generation of smart journalists and media creators for social good. His research focuses on media development and new media leadership and innovation. He's worked widely in journalism and education, media development in South Africa and Southern Africa for over 20 years, which is older than a lot of us here, right? Can we please welcome Jude to the panel stage? You can take a seat, I can see you know him well, right? Okay, secondly, I would like to welcome Ms. Abongile Mashele, who is currently a lead for government affairs and public policy at Google in South Africa. Yeah. She says that she's a mother of 3, and that is her greatest source of joy and purpose, which if anyone who's a parent, you know that it always is. She's a graduate of UCT and Wits School of Government. And she oversaw the drafting and adoption of the country, South Africa's national youth policy, as well as research focusing on content regulation in South Africa. Can we give her another warm hand of applause? Okay, then we have Dr. Eileen Carter. Dr. Eileen Carter is a colleague, and she's a provincial manager of the South African Human Rights Commission in Eastern Cape. I think many of you here would have met her already. She's an admitted attorney and an accredited mediator, and she has a doctorate in which her paper focused on the right to access to justice of children with disabilities. So she's passionate about vulnerable groups, about children, and about access to justice in general. She has an LLB from Stellenbosch, an LLM with distinction from Northwest University, and obviously has been recognized by Mail and Guardian as a top 200 young person in 2015. Can you give her a hand? Okay, so in terms of TikTok, we have two representatives. We have Ojwa Ankoma, who will be here in person, and we have Mr. Fortune Mwili Sibanda, who will join us via Teams. I have Mr. Fortune's profile, which I'll read to you while we welcome our colleague. Fortune Mwili Sibanda is the Africa Director of Public Policy and Government Relations at TikTok. He has more than 20 years' experience in tech and communications industry, having worked for Google, the Open Society Foundation, and Media Monitoring Africa. He is a Rhodes University alumni, and in his spare time enjoys road running, playing golf, and chess. So can we please welcome our colleagues from TikTok, who is also represented by Ms. Ankoma on stage. And since I don't have a bio when she speaks, we'll ask her also to give us a bit of her story too. Yeah? Awesome. All right. So I have the honor of asking the first few questions to our panelists. And then we'll have a question and answer from some of our attendees. I think we can make an arrangement for those in the overflow also to ask a question or two. I'll leave that to the colleagues on the floor. But we're going to start first with Dr. Eileen Carter from the Human Rights Commission. She will give us an introduction to social media and the human rights perspective. So Eileen, the first question I'm going to ask you is, what is the Human Rights Commission's landscape? What are the trends? And what has been the Commission's experience when it comes to social media?
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I think, first of all, I just want to have a hands up. Who has liked a post that is 3 years old whilst they are stalking their exes online? Hands up. Come on, hands up. Yeah, you see. In the same breath, though, who has championed a human rights cause online, something that you felt very passionate about? Hands up. You see. So we've all been there. Whether you are having a look at what your interests have been up to online, whether you are championing social justice online, human rights has been changed by social media. And it is an exciting discussion that we can have here today to see what the landscape is looking like and what our partners in social media and online are doing for us to be able to have this conversation and build a foundation of human rights within this discourse as well. So that's just a short intro from my side.
Okay, thank you. So when we talk about human rights online, do we have human rights when we're online? Can you explain to us what human rights we have when we're online, please?
Thanks, Alan. I think, like anything else in society, We need a very clear and strong foundation to build on. So human rights must be the foundation and the structure that we build anything else on. Else, the weight of inequality and discrimination and social injustice will let any other structure cave. And that includes structures such as social media and online services, which means they must be built on a very strong human rights foundation. So what does it look like when we do act online? I think, Alan, you've given very clear statistics on that, but in 3 years, the stat shows that online activity and people on social media has tripled. There's about 30 million people on social media currently in South Africa. And as the Human Rights Commission, even as early as last week, we engaged on human rights and telecommunications infrastructure, where we spoke about how SA Connect is currently being rolled out, for instance, in the Eastern Cape specifically. So by 2025, we're going to have increased accessibility by means of about extra 6,000 community Wi-Fi hotspots only in the Eastern Cape. 1,000 of them going to be here in Nelson Mandela Bay, Muni. So get ready for your grannies and your parents. They are all going to start making use of social media even more. So those viral images, is it the gold and the white dress of 2015? I promise you they're going to be brought back. Your parents are going to share it as if it's new information. So the activity online is going to keep on increasing and increasing. But what does that mean for human rights realization? What are we doing online when we do access these platforms? Well, from the Human Rights Commission's side, the number one complaint that has reached our offices in the past financial year relates to equality. We've got an equality issue in this country. And a lot of the discrimination and hate speech and harassment matters that reach our office, unfortunately, comes from social media. So what have we done in that respect? We've also tested what the experiences of vulnerable communities and marginalized communities are online when it comes to these violations. And we've also put that info on our social media pages. But it shows, like, for instance, women. More than 70% of them have faced abuse online, whether it's harassment, whether it's body shaming, whether it's stalking. And more than 90% of them have seen other women being abused online. And when we asked them how has that impacted on their own activities, they said it has. So we are in actual fact not hearing the authentic voices of marginalized communities anymore. It is impacted by abuse online. So as the Human Rights Commission, the Social Media Charter is then in fact one of the tools that we want to have available for us to navigate this discourse on social media and human rights. We want to be able to give a guideline, to give a framework on how we best can engage on these platforms. Because the Deputy Chairperson has indicated our SHINE initiative. And the I in SHINE is literally the I. What are we doing in respect of promoting social cohesion? I would want to go a little bit further to say social media, the me. What are we doing? What am I doing on social media, which can make the platform a more conducive environment for all, including marginalized communities? So you might be sitting here and saying, yeah, all right, but I can still get away with a lot of things on social media because I can potentially be anonymous. Well, as the Human Rights Commission, I just want to give you an indication. That's not going to work for you because we can appoint tracking agents and we'll get hold of you. We can also subpoena social media houses to access your information, the IP address you made use of when you opened your account. I can have your telephone number, your email address. So anonymity is no longer a way out. I can also, if you sit here and you say, yeah, but I'm only a student. I don't have 100,000 Rand. So there's not going to be any impact on me. Well, the Human Rights Commission was also involved in litigation where the court said, you can't plead poverty if you spew hate speech online. And in that respect, the court ordered a criminal investigation against a student who said he only made a joke online. You may be sitting here and saying, yeah, I'm just going to comment on Eileen's hair. You know, she's not going to care. And somebody else might be reading it in, maybe my mom reads it in Kimberley. While the jurisprudence currently says, if you feel hurt and harm online, and you're harassed online, there in Kimberley, where they are reading it, is where the cause of action occurs. So you might have to go and account for that in Kimberley. So what I'm trying to illustrate is there are rights and there are responsibilities. And what we want to do as the Human Rights Commission is to give you the tool to navigate these responsibilities. Because I've got a 3-year-old, and I recently bought a set of crayons for the 3-year-old. And as I gave him the crayons, and I was really impressed with myself, you know, mom duty, and he was walking with these crayons, and I turned my head and he was writing on the wall. Now that was a deal breaker. He's not supposed to use this tool of expression to write on the wall. So I was cleaning up on the one side, and as I turned my head, Jackson was already busy with coloring the dog's bowl. So I was addressing on one side, but it already became an issue on the other side. And I needed to put parameters in place for him to know how to express himself, making use of this creativity he has, making use of the crayons, but within the confines of what is expected. That's our social media charter. And that's how we can navigate with our partners in the social media environment, how we can deal with harassment online, hate speech online. It's an exciting time. It's an absolute exciting time for us. But I want to remind you, you cannot unfollow human rights. You can't unfriend the Human Rights Commission. And you definitely cannot mute us. We're going to be there and we're going to have the discussion on human rights and social media. And we're being supported by the university, we're being supported by our partners in social media. And it's a very exciting time to have you here, the end users, to take our hands in furthering this discourse. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. So I'm someone who worries about my privacy on social media, but also my privacy in general when cameras are recording me, when she says we're going to have so many cameras and hotspots. And I want to give you the comfort of knowing that the social media charter also gives you guides for those who like their privacy on how to maintain your privacy on social media. Yes, you can choose to tap out and not be part of it, but you can also just choose to control what other people see so that you can equally enjoy it to other people, yeah? Great. Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to our second panelist, Ms. Mashele from Google SA. When I was looking around the internet, trying to find out some things, I searched what were the most searched things in SA last year, in 2022. Some of you might not know. And then in my journey, I then came across what they had produced in terms of a video. And it said that in 2022, the term that was searched more than ever, right, was, "Can I change?" And then they added the different things. Can I change my life? Can I change my lifestyle? Can I change my fashion? Can I change my work? Can I change my location? And I thought that that was a very touching thing for people to search in the times that we're in. What is most important was, can I be different than I am right now? And I think that is something that we can agree we can be, right? We're not stuck to what we are right now, isn't it? Even the degree that you're studying today, tomorrow you could, or next year, you could study another degree, you know? You're not stuck to those things. And then when I searched, in contrast, what were the top searches in South Africa last year, number one was a status check on the social relief of distress grant, which is like quite opposite. Then the game Wordle. I don't know how many of you play Wordle. Anyone? Yeah, so it's our baby boomers that are searching Wordle, clearly. And the third was climate change, funny enough, which means it's something that we're all quite passionate about in our country, yeah? Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to Ms. Mashele and ask her a few questions. The first one is, how has social media and the digitization of our conversations influenced policy regulations in countries such as ours?
Thank you for that. Good morning, everyone. Molweni. Just to go back to your point on the most searched terms, I'll have to check, but I think load shedding was right up there with everything, the latest load shedding schedule. Firstly, let me commend the Human Rights Commission for publishing this charter. I often say we have one of the best human rights-driven constitutions in the world. But for it to be a lived document, it's about the values. It's about us behaving in such a way that we reflect what is in our constitutional dispensation. So we have institutions like the Human Rights Commission that will nudge us along sometimes when you go off the rails, or as they've recently done, issue a fine or a yardstick that will make us, get back into the rail. And I think this charter is just one of those gentle nudges that the Commission is putting in place to help us to realize that when you are online, your behavior, your conduct needs to be exactly the same as what is expected of you in your family, in the communities that you engage in, as well as any other at the university. So it's a commendable tool that you've put in place, and I hope all of us will make our various efforts to make sure that it is spread out, the message is spread out. Now, going back to your question, firstly, Google is not a social media company. We have a very broad range of technological products that we have as Google, and Google Search is one of those. Google Search is not a social media platform or a social media product, but it's basically an information product. It's utilizing technological instruments to make sure information is easily accessible to everyone. But we do have a social media platform, which I'm sure many of the young people in the room are familiar with, which is YouTube. We all go there to get the latest lecturers. If you don't know the topic that was covered in your lecture for the day, you go to YouTube, you're sure to find someone there. Now, from a tech company, it's very important for us to realize that whatever products we develop need to be based on the human rights principles. So the products that you develop need to make sure that they safeguard human rights globally. And I think as a company, as Google, that's one of the things that we focus on, which is why we respect global instruments that are there at United Nations level in terms of what are the human rights principles, what are the charters, what do we mean when we're talking about the respect of dignity of individuals? What do we mean when we're talking about the respect to privacy by individuals? It means that when we design our products, we need to embed that in the solution that we have. So when you have your Google search, it covers that. When you have your YouTube, it covers that. So the various platforms that we have need to have that approach, need to have that understanding, and they need to have that safeguard for consumers. Because if they don't have that safeguard for consumers, it's easy for consumers to walk away. So as a private company, it is in our best interest to make sure that human rights are central to how we design products. Secondly, human rights are central to policies that we have in place. So the policies inform the products, the do's and the don'ts on our platforms, but they also say when there is a transgression, how then do you as a user exercise your rights? So as a company, we have several policies that we have put in place on our various platforms that outline what are the responsibilities you have as a user and what are the responsibilities we have as a company and how to report those. And thirdly, it's education of the consumer and the user. So all tech companies that you have, even your TikTok, I'm sure they'll talk about the effort that we put in place to educate consumers. Because if consumers are not aware of the safeguards that are there on the various platforms, they will not utilize them. So it is a responsibility for ourselves, but it's also a responsibility for everyone in this room to familiarize ourselves with the policies and the tools that are there on our platforms. And I think I need to commend the Charter for that. It acknowledges those various instruments that are in place, and it encourages everyone to know what they are and learn how to utilize them. This question is a long question, so I hope I've covered it, but I think I tried to cover the basics overall.
Thank you. So just to follow up questions. Google's a multinational company. So from your perspective, what role do you think government can play to ensure that people's rights are protected online?
So the complexity becomes greater for a multinational, a global multinational, because there's various jurisdictions with varying values and norms. But one of the things that the global tech companies have done as we have evolved is to make an effort to understand the values and the norms in the different jurisdictions that we operate within. So what you will find most of the time is that policies are applied differently in different countries, different jurisdictions, and the main reason for that is because the policy environment is informed by the laws, the legislative framework that different countries have. So we then try and understand what is the context within that country. Not try, we have to, it's an obligation to understand what is the legal frameworks, and we ensure that our tools and our platforms are able to accommodate those. So I'll give you an example, and I think South Africa has a very good framework. I've been in this space for a couple of years. We have a lot of laws, we have a lot of regulatory instruments that regulate speech and expression in South Africa. I wouldn't even say we need anything more that we can put in place. And also our jurisprudence has evolved so much that we even know how to define hate speech better than what we did in 1994. So we have great instruments. We have a number of institutions, public and private institutions. What I would say government would need to do is to say, how can we be more coherent as those institutions of government that are in place right now that deal with the regulation of speech. Having a regulator that deals with broadcasting and the different segments of the media is great, but we are now moving to a space where there's technologies, to a space where online is going to be dominating. So how do we ensure that coherence so that we don't inhibit? Because what I want us to highlight is it's important for us not to inhibit the growth of tech in our market, because it has potential for many industries and for many markets. So government, for me, what I would say is, how do we make greater coherence of the instruments that we have? And then secondly, education, education, education. I don't even want to underrepresent the importance of education in tech.
Thank you for that. Can we give her a hand? Okay, so we're going to move now to our colleagues from TikTok. Now, again, I was doing some background checks on TikTok. I obviously have a TikTok account, so I know what it is, but not many people do, actually. It is the world's fastest growing social media platform, right? And 60% of people use TikTok to find funny or entertaining videos. Is that correct? Yeah? But I find that in SA we also use it to find videos of people dancing to piano music. Is it just me? Yeah, we do, right? And apparently the world is really catching on to this primarily because of that, because our content that people create at home or on the streets are reaching people all over the world because of how quickly you can access it and how fast it trends, right? Which is what's resulting in piano growing so fast as well, in addition to it being good music, right? Cool. So I'm going to hand over to our two colleagues. I see Fortune has also joined us online to answer a couple of our questions, right? So I will start the question we ended with here with Google, which is what safeguards, what mechanisms do you have in place to promote the protection of people's human rights on TikTok?
Can I go?
Yes, go ahead, go ahead.
You can hear me. I'm getting a lot of echo, so it's a bit delayed.
We can hear you fine. You can go ahead.
All right. Mute. Okay. I'm just hoping that you're hearing me. I just muted my own audio because I'm getting a lot of feedback. So first of all, I'd like to congratulate the South African Human Rights Commission for a job well done in the launch of the charter. I think definitely it's a step in the right direction. It's a good starting point. I say this because at TikTok we always say that, you know, when it comes to safety and protection of users online, there is no finish line. So it's a process that has to keep going. So this is a very good starting point, and we are very glad to be part of it. Also, I recognize a few people that I know on the panel. I know Jude from Rhodes University, Abongile, Dr. Carter, and of course my colleague Aja. I wanted to start off by saying that, you know, I went to the best university in South Africa, Rhodes University, but then I realized it might not be popular, so I'll not say that. Okay, so what are the safeguards to answer your question, Alan? I think for us at TikTok, the starting point is community guidelines. We have a set of community guidelines. There are 11 of them currently. They form the basis of what I would say the code of conduct of what you can do and what you cannot do on TikTok. It is actually through these community guidelines where we protect people's human rights and we help people realize their own human rights through this code of conduct. We develop these over time and we keep improving them, obviously. But I think what's important about them is how they take into account the different laws, the different cultural norms, different beliefs of people all around the world to try and codify, the top 11, I think, important things at the time to help people safeguard their own human rights. So when you look at, there are a variety of human rights, right? We've got social human rights, we've got cultural, political, we've got economic human rights. But as you read through the community guidelines, you can see that each specific community guideline seeks to address a specific set of guaranteed human rights. So for example, we've got community guidelines on hate speech. We do not allow users to post messages or videos or text that attacks a group of people based on set characteristics. It could be demographics, it could be nationality, it could be sexuality, it could be class, for example, difference. So we've got specific community guidelines that say you are not allowed to post this. If you post it, there are consequences, right? And part of those consequences involve taking it down or suspending you from the platform, or in instances where it's clearly illegal content, it involves collaborating with law enforcement agencies to enable successful prosecution. So the community guideline on hate speech, if you look at our constitution, our community guidelines on hate speech seek to address those things, that you cannot discriminate against people because of their set characteristics. You cannot propagate violence against people, against minorities because of certain characteristics. We've got, for example, human rights around the right to be protected. So we've got community guidelines as well that speak to your privacy. You have a right to privacy. You have a right not to be arbitrarily, your privacy not to be arbitrarily intruded on. So this is a specific community guideline again that actually speaks to a real world human right. Copyright. Some of our community guidelines focus on copyright. Now, what does that got to do with human rights? It's economic rights. If you are a creator and you've created a piece of content, you have a right to earn money from it, for example, or the benefits of that piece of content. So our copyright guidelines, they make sure that we protect the creators of that content in order for them to get the appropriate recognition for that content. Lately, I think some of the things that we've been immersed on in TikTok is around elections. You've got a right to freedom of expression. I haven't even gone there. Freedom of assembly, freedom of opinion, also freedom to participate in public affairs. So, for example, elections. What we are seeing happening right now online is the emergence of misinformation or disinformation or fake news, if I may use the modern parlance. What is that got to do with human rights? It means that if there's misinformation, it deters people from practicing, their civil rights to vote, for example, or to participate in democratic processes such as election from an informed perspective. So we've got specific community guidelines again that, do not allow people to spread misinformation, especially around elections. And then we've got specific ways in which then we deal with misinformation. I can go into more detail about it later if you're interested. But this is just one of the ways that shows how our community guidelines specifically then seek to protect our users' rights. So after the community guidelines, what we now have is a set of what we call trust and safety teams. This is a group of moderators that operate 24 hours, 7 days a week around the world to actually enforce these community guidelines, to make sure that no such content actually sees the light of day on our platform. If it does, there are specific consequences that I've referred to. So this is how in action we are actually helping people realize their human rights. And also what's interesting for us at least is that we also publish quarterly reports that outline how many pieces of content we've taken down for violating our community guidelines, right? So in the last quarter, there were close to 110 million pieces of content that we took down in the short space of just 3 months for violating our community guidelines. So this is how in reality, we are actually making sure that we walk the talk. We want to ensure that our users are safe, they are protected, and our users can actually use our platform to realize their rights. Thank you. Over to you.
Just to add, and I'm sure you're wondering, why are there 2 people from TikTok? So Fortune wasn't able to join us physically, as you can see, and we wanted to make sure that even if there were any kind of interruptions, technical interruptions or load shedding, we would be able to participate in the panel. I think just to drive down exactly what Abongile and Fortune said, we are a platform that is predominantly a creative platform. We're interested in creating a safe space. We really welcome the efforts of the Human Rights Commission to enable creating greater knowledge around how to create a safe space, around what your responsibilities are. I hope that everyone here will listen quite intently. I know that some of the audio has been a bit patchy, but the audience, the commission does have this chapter online for you to follow up. And I hope that you'll use this time to really engage in seeing how you can be part of creating a safe space online.
Thank you. So one thing that stood out to me in their response is that if you are experiencing cyberbullying or someone has stolen your content, that there's somewhere where you can report it to and it will be taken care of, that you don't have to suffer in silence, as they would say, right? And that's something that is good, right? Are we happy about that? Okay, cool. All right, so I'm gonna leave some questions for the crowd. So let me go to Jude while we still have him here. So Jude, can you tell us, what does the future of communication look like, and what should we be on the lookout for?
Hi, thanks. So I had, as a good lecturer does, a full-on presentation about this. But in terms of what we can expect from the future, it's a very Wild West space. I know the people involved in legal are giving you a background about their policies and their guidelines. But we have to remember that the organizations that we are talking about, Google, in other words, Alphabet, Meta, ByteDance, TikTok. You call it TikTok, but it's ByteDance, the holding companies. These are firms not incorporated in South African jurisdiction. They're global firms. They might be be incorporated and spread across multiple jurisdictions. The role of any company, essentially, is to make money. Billions of dollars. In actual fact, Google's 2021 revenues, if I have them correct here, were $256 billion. South Africa's GDP in 2021 was 419. That's a single global company making just about half of what SA's total economic activity was for that year. And so even though there is a discussion about guidelines and what influences it and the human rights culture, we have to be aware that for all these companies, they are still essentially businesses. We have, for example, people speak about the big five media companies, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, I'm missing one, they're Microsoft, because we obviously forget LinkedIn. Sometimes we forget Twitter, but Twitter is Tesla, whose CEO Elon Musk now owns Twitter, is the fourth biggest company on the US Standards & Poor's index. And one person has phenomenal power over a global influential platform. It doesn't have as many users, okay, as Instagram does. But if you look at who the politicians and who the influencers follow and where they go, it is Twitter. But one person has the keys to changing policies on a whim at a second's notice. And so, when we talk about the future, we must have, as part of our consideration, the political economies of these organizations, because as well-meaning as we can talk about their policies and also following a human rights culture, we have to realize that they are very often more beholden and have greater interest where the majority of their profits come from. And the majority of the profits of these companies come from the global north. And consequently, the policies of these companies are essentially then derived in the global north. And of course, with ByteDance, if the Communist Party of China had anything to say, that will massively impact on what the policies of that organization will be. And so when we talk about the future, we have to bear these aspects in mind, that we are dealing with companies that are, while they do take into consideration the global south, while Google, for example, uses some of its massive profits to also support journalism in the global south, that this is simply but a drop in the bucket of what these organizations do. These organizations must also take responsibility for the massive challenges that they wreak when they create and change and tweak the algorithm by changing it from one thing to another, and consequently changing the priorities of what you see in your timeline, how it appears, what the priorities are for influencers, what the priorities are for what you see and what you produce. There are a handful of companies, if you think about them, 5 globally, in the global north, that are responsible for placing themselves as a moderator in the middle of the communication space for the entire world. And that has a knock-on impact on a range of things. It has a knock-on impact on our human rights culture. It has a knock-on impact on our democratic culture. It's got a knock-on impact on the psychologies of young people because of the time they spend on these addicting technologies. 3 hours, you said? I was interviewing my students last year just for a class, and some students were saying they spend 6 hours a day on it. Some students would acknowledge their actual addiction to these tools because of how these algorithms will work. And so, yes, in terms of the future, we do need, and I acknowledge this, we do need a lot of education, starting in places like this, also starting in basic education, for students to know how to use these tools, how they are created, what they can do about them, but also we need to understand as a people how we can influence these companies and their policies, because that also needs to be part of the larger charter. While these tools have been supportive of human rights and even democratic reforms, movements like Me Too, all right? Movements like Fees Must Fall, their messages were amplified. And if these tools did not exist, one would question whether or not those movements would have brought about the social change that they did. But, as we've also need to note, these tools also result in the manipulation and misuse of information that can be used to radicalize social divisions. As a result of how algorithms work, keep people within their own specific points of view and filter bubbles that magnify polarization. Facebook, and this was well documented in 2017, was told that in Myanmar, in Burma, that there was active hate speech on their platforms against the Rohingya Muslim minority, okay, which exploded into violence in 2016 and 2017. Rape, murder, death, 700,000 people displaced, okay? Facebook made no move to change and take down the content or change its policies, even though it was warned from 2013. One of its excuses was, I think you recall, they didn't have enough Burmese speakers on their moderating policies. Sorry, to look at their moderating policies, to look at the content moderation. And that scares me. You know why it scares me? Because this is a land of multiple cultures and languages. And when we are talking about social media, it's not like everybody tweets or is on Instagram in Isingisi, all right? Some of us are Xhosa, some of us might be speaking in Gqeberha. And guess what? Most of these companies in the last 2 years have started to cut costs and fire and sack and rationalize their people. Because why? They are profit-making companies. Now, when they do that, the consequence is when a big company like Google catches a cold, the world gets the flu, all right? When it gets a sniffle, the world catches a cold. So when Google starts to cut down on its people, or ByteDance starts to cut down on its people, which could also lead to a decline in terms of, I'm not saying it is, the people who are responsible for those safeguards. We need to ask ourselves questions. We need to be asking questions like, for moderation, do you moderate in other South African languages? If somebody writes through a complaint in Gqeberha, would you be able to be taken on? And so those are the kinds of things that I would certainly like to be able to consider for the future going forward. Because the next phase, you want to speak about the future, all your data that you gave up is sitting in a large database where all these companies will be exploiting for the next generation, potentially, of profit-generating technology, which is artificial intelligence.
So I want to ask a follow-up, just for the benefit of us here. You know, when you're speaking with someone, I'm speaking to Eileen and I say to her, yeah, I really want to buy a solar panel. And we leave each other and I go to my phone and the first advert that pops up is, are you looking for solar panels? So can you give us an idea of maybe 2, 3 types of data that are collected when we use social media? Just so we know. But also, I'm aware that, for example, the EU is considering passing laws that include a due diligence when it comes to use of data. And do you think there's a space for that in our domestic legislation?
Okay, so there's 2 bits of information there. There's your demographic data, there might be economic data. There's also, you were speaking about the laws. Yes, some countries are now on top of it, and the EU is passing laws specifically around artificial intelligence. While I did speak about artificial intelligence, I might have also spoken out of hand. Because at the moment, tools like ChatGPT don't access content on search engines and on people's social media. But good people, that's not meant to say that another company, non-Google company, some new startup might start and indeed start doing, using, or exploiting that space of those technologies. And so this is why I said that we must be conscious. We must be conscious of these organizations and what they can do, because the consequences of these tools that we essentially use. I want to change and speak about something else, which is dear to my heart, and also William Byrd's heart, is sitting over there. He's either on his cell phone on Twitter, or alternatively he's videoing me, and I'm not sure if I gave my consent. But it's about the impact of journalism, because journalism as a social practice, people might say, journalism for what? Journalism for who? I ask my own students, and they don't read newspapers, they don't read magazines, they don't watch television, except that what they don't know essentially is primed to hurt them. But the mere fact that people spend so much of their time on these tools, okay, because these tools are also competing for your time and attention, means that people aren't spending time finding out about the very world around them, or finding out about other people. I'm not saying they don't, okay, there's not an exclusive, but they're spending necessarily less time. And social media isn't going to replace journalism as a cure-all in a democracy and in human rights. You know, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Sorry, I had it written down. Okay. Sorry.
I think
Peter Magubane.
Yeah?
Peter Magubane.
Yeah.
So Peter Magubane is one of South Africa's foremost photographers. He photographed the 1976 youth rights, because you started by talking about that. You know, Peter Magubane he's had his house burnt down, he was shot, he was made to stand on brick blocks for 5 days, he was incarcerated in solitary confinement for over 500 days. And his contribution to human rights in South Africa was being brave enough to document what happened during the 1976 uprising. Yeah. I would like to challenge any keyboard warrior sending hopes and prayers to whatever cause to be as brave as him because we need journalists. But the net consequence in our society of not engaging with this idea of how these companies, who also have a disproportionate share of digital profits, or take a disproportionate share of digital profits in companies, out of companies, will has consequently also contributed to the erosion of those media institutions and the consequence of the viability of journalism. And as a consequence of that, the potential that that has for human rights, where social media cannot be everything, and sometimes you need someone else to find the people who are voiceless. Yeah. Because with, how many people have the internet in South Africa? What's the latest figure? 60%? I know we got about 29 million people on Facebook.
48 million.
But about 50% of people wouldn't have access to that.
Yes, thank you, Jude. Can we give him a hand? Okay, so now it's time for us to hear your voices and your questions, right? Obviously, we cannot be here all day, so we have to limit the questions we have. Given that I work in the equality area, we can have at least one guy, one lady, so we equal, and then I will find out if we can take a question from our overflow room as well. Just a moment. The mic. Okay, so please put your hands up if you want to ask a question. We're going to let's take one from this side, one from that side. Is that fair? Fair. So we only have time for two because I know your stomachs are telling you other things too, right? So let's start here. We can have this question here. Then someone on the side, please. Okay, I see a gentleman over there in the yellow shirt. Yes. Or is it orange? Yes, you. Okay, then let's have those two questions, please. Can we also please be respectful of our guests when we ask them questions? Yes? All right, we'll wait for you. Yeah, sir. Go ahead. Ask your question. No, not yet.
Okay. Greetings to the House at large. My name is Baiti Mahlangu. So I don't necessarily have a question. I have a comment I would like to add on to Mr. Jude because I'm captured by what he said. Okay. So he rang a bell of basically us not just being producers and active participants on social media, but we're consumers too, right? So I was thinking that, most of the news or social media content we consume is owned by companies, yes. So I was thinking about, like, when we watch news, these news outlets are basically companies who on their own have an agenda, or it might be capital.
Continue.
It might be political and etc., right? So because we watch those things, we are triggered as a society to sort of respond. So my contribution to the audience as well as the commission is that I would like for you to sort of have more access and education to the country at large, to sort of be aware of what the digital footprint is, So in essence, and as much as we're consuming everything, I want people to be aware that what you feel now and what you publish might follow you years later, even though you might have education of different views and different outlooks on things, but just to... Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous.
Okay,
sorry.
Last one.
Okay, sorry. Do you understand what I'm saying, though?
Yes, we understand you perfectly. Don't worry. And you're very correct. What you post today does follow you. The internet doesn't end in that sense, right?
All right. So what's our second question comment? Okay, we're just waiting for
Over
Mike.
here.
Wait. Hold on. Okay. You can start while we wait for him.